The divine dialogue between the master and the disciple.
Master, read by Bob Gonzalez.
Disciple, read by Algy Pug.
I, the Master, dwell in the hearts of all men, but all men do not consciously dwell with me. He that abides with me, in all his thoughts and deeds, has reached the divine consummation.
Salutation. Rejoice, all ye who seek truth. Be glad and not sorrowful, all ye who love truth. For your sorrow shall pass away as the mists of the morning, your doubt shall be as the darkness that is not. And as a dream of the night shall your afflictions be. The disciple cried, and lo, the master heard. The disciple was ready, and lo, the master was at hand. The disciple sought, and behold, the master was revealed. 1. Of seeking and finding. Where is knowledge? Where is truth? Where is peace? I am sorrowful and find no comfort in men. I have gone astray and find no surety in the teachings of men. Yea, even in myself I find no truth and no remedy for my doubt and sorrow. I have striven in the pride of my heart. I have contended with men for my opinions. I have mistaken evil for good, and have called ignorance knowledge. And now I am alone, and there is none to hear me. And if I cry, there is none to hear my voice.
Nay, I am with thee, and I hear thy voice.
Who art thou that dost assure me?
I am the Spirit of truth.
O Master, O Spirit of truth, why didst thou not come to me before? Why didst thou leave me so long desolate?
Thou wert not desolate till now. Pride was thy companion, and pride satisfied thee. Where pride is, there I cannot come, and he who listens to its flatteries cannot hear my voice. Self-glory blinded thee, so that my form thou couldst not see. Self-exaltation deafened thee, and when I called, thou didst not hear. Self-seeking led thee astray, and my way was hidden from thee. But now, having put away pride, thou hast both seen and heard. Ask, and I will answer. Seek, and thou shalt find.
Comfort me, O Master, for I am weary. Strengthen me, for I am weak. Teach me, for I am lacking in knowledge.
He who deserts self, and takes refuge in me, is never deserted. My word is his comfort, my law is his strength, and my commands his instruction and knowledge.
Speak thy word, and I will listen. Reveal thy law, and I will walk therein. Command me, and I, thy servant, will obey. For thou art the Master whom I so long sought, and having found thee, let me not depart from thee.
He who follows self abandons me, but he who abandons self, lo, he is with me always.
Hitherto I have clung to self, I have followed after vain and empty desires, and caught in the toils of self-delusion, I have not known thy presence. But now, O Master, I have found thee, and having found thee, let me remain with thee. Let me be thy child, obeying thy voice. Let me be thy pupil, receiving thy instruction. Let me become thy disciple, and follow wheresoever thou dost lead.
Thy humility, O disciple, hath made thee mine. Thou hast entered the gateway leading to my kingdom, even to the kingdom of a righteous life. Henceforth thou wilt follow truth and not self. Striving thou hast entered, searching thou hast revealed, seeking thou hast found. Ask whatsoever thou wilt, and I will not withhold instruction.
2. Of entering the way. Teacher of teachers, instruct thou me.
Ask, and I will answer.
I have read much, but am ignorant still. I have studied the doctrines of the schools, but have not become wise thereby. I know the Scriptures by heart, but peace is hidden from me. Point out to me, O Master, the way of knowledge, reveal to me the high way of divine wisdom. Lead thou thy child into the path of peace.
The way of knowledge, O disciple, is by searching the heart. The highway of wisdom is by the practice of righteousness, and by a sinless life is found the way of peace.
Bear with me, O Master. In my uncertainty I am bewildered by the multitude of opinions, and by the number of schools am I confounded. Delusion blinds me, doubt encompasses me, and I cannot find the way wherein I should walk. Teach me how to search, how to practice, how to wear the garment of a blameless life.
Delusion and doubt, O disciple, are within thyself. Within thyself also are reality and certainty. By thine own errors only art thou blinded. Remove those errors, and thou shalt behold truth. Engage, therefore, in holy meditation. Search thy heart with the searching of truth, and cast out therefrom all that is of self.
What is of self?
Desire and passion and egotism. From desire and passion and egotism springs self-delusion, and self-delusion is the obscuration of truth. Renounce desire, overcome passion, put away egotism. Then will delusion be dispelled, and all thy doubts will vanish.
O Master! Great is the task which thou hast set before me. Laborious the work which thou commandest me to do. Steep and strange the way of renunciation which thou hast pointed out to me. Desire is deeply rooted in my nature, and passion binds me fast to earthly things. Yea, desire and passion are my very self. Must I renounce myself? Must I yield up that which seems so sweet? All men long to preserve the self, they pray for its eternal preservation and possession, and must I let it perish?
Thou must, for thou hast vowed to follow me.
Yea, I have vowed, and I will follow thee.
Seest thou how all men suffer? This is because they long to preserve the self. This is because they labor for its eternal preservation and possession. In desire and egotism and passion are turmoil and unrest. In me alone is peace. Weary and pain-stricken is the world, because it knows not me. But in me there is no weariness, and pain and sorrow cannot come to my abode. My abode is a purified heart. The upright mind is my temple, and the blameless life is my holy habitation.
I will take refuge in thee, in thy abode, in thy temple, yea, even in thy holy habitation.
The purified heart is not stained by desire. The upright mind is not impelled by passion, and in the blameless life there is no thought of self. Search thy heart and follow truth. Put away the self of desire and passion and egotism. Deny, overcome, and abandon it. Let no vestige of it remain with thee, for it is the author of all confusion, the source of all affliction, the spring of pain and sorrow and unrest. Rest thou in me.
Thou hast pointed out to me the way of truth, even the holy way of selfishness. That way will I walk. My resolution, O Master of Truth, is fixed in thee. I will put away desire and will cling to thee. I will be deaf to the voices of passion, and will listen only to thy voice. I will not seek my own, but will obey the holy law. Lo, I have put my feet upon thy way. Lead thou thy servant unto light and peace.
Thou hast entered, O disciple, the path of righteousness. Thy feet are set upon the way of wisdom. Thou shalt comprehend my law. the light of knowledge shall illumine thee, and I will guide thy footfalls unto peace.
3. Of discipline and purification. I am in sorrow, O Master. My feet are weary, and darkness is closing around me. Desert me not, but come now to my assistance. My desires are strong, and they cry out for their habitual pleasures. My passions are violent, and overwhelm me with their strength, and the voices of my false opinions weary me with their demands. The way is dark and difficult to follow. Shed upon me, O Master, the light of thy knowledge. Comfort me with the balm of thy instruction.
Thy sorrow, O disciple, is of the self. In me there is no sorrow. The darkness which surrounds thee is the shadow cast by the self. There is no darkness in me. Truth is serene and sorrowless. There is no weeping and weariness and lamentation in truth. Even now, though thou seest it not, my light is shining on thy pathway. But thou seest only the dark illusions of thy worldly self. Press forward, and think only of truth. Look not behind thee, nor let thy mind swerve from thy holy resolution. Great is the conquest which thou hast entered upon, even the mighty conquest of thyself. Be faithful, and thou shalt overcome.
Lead me, O Master, for my darkness is very great. Clouds of selfish thoughts envelop me, and the enemies within my mind assail me continually. In the snares of my own making my feet are caught, and when I think to walk firmly, I stumble and fall. Yea, my falls are many and grievous, and my wounds frequent and sore. Will the darkness lift, O Master? Will trial end in victory? And will there be an end to my many sorrows?
When thy heart is pure, the darkness will disappear. When thy mind is freed from passion, thou wilt reach the end of trial. And when the thought of self-preservation is yielded up, there will be no more cause for sorrow. Thou art now upon the way of discipline and purification. All my disciples must walk that way. Before thou canst enter the white light of knowledge, before thou canst behold the full glory of truth, all thy impurities must be purged away, the delusions dispelled, and thy mind fortified with endurance. Though darkness surroundeth thee, though temptation assaileth thee on every hand, though thou art sore distressed and seest not before thee, yet relax not thy faith in truth. Forget not that truth is eternally supreme. Remember that I, the Lord of truth, am watching over thee.
Great is my faith in truth, and I will not forget, but will remember thee.
Walking faithfully the path of discipline and purification, not forsaking and abandoning it, and not longing to enjoy the pleasures which thou hast left behind thee, thou wilt learn those things which are necessary for thee. Thou wilt learn of the nature of sin and the meaning of temptation, of suffering and sorrow and their cause and cure, of the fleeting nature of thyself and its pleasures, of the permanence of truth and its abiding peace, of what are the marks of ignorance and what constitutes knowledge, of what makes evil and what is eternally good, of the painfulness of self and the bliss of truth wilt thou learn. Thou wilt also learn of illusion and reality. Be faithful and endure, and I will teach thee all things.
I will not turn my face from thee, nor will I desert thy holy way.
Hear me again, O disciple. Walking faithfully the path of discipline and purification, not abandoning it, but submitting to its austerities, thou wilt acquire the 3 lesser powers of discipleship. Thou wilt also receive the 3 greater powers, and the lesser and the greater powers will render thee invincible. By their aid thou wilt subdue all sin, Thou wilt overcome the uttermost. Thou wilt achieve the supreme conquest.
What are the lesser and the greater powers?
Self-control, self-reliance, and watchfulness. These are the three lesser powers. Steadfastness, patience, and gentleness. These are the three greater powers. When thy mind is well controlled, and in thy keeping, when thou reliest upon no external help, but upon truth alone, and when thou art ceaselessly watchful over thy thoughts and actions, then will the three lesser powers be thine, and with these powers thou wilt dispel the great darkness. Thou wilt approach the supreme light. Approaching the supreme light, thou wilt become steadfastly fixed in truth. Thou wilt become patient with an infinite patience, and gentle with a gentleness which nothing can change or mar. Then will the three greater powers be thine. Then wilt thou come to the end of the path of discipline, and wilt ascend unto the higher path of knowledge. Walking the path of knowledge, thy sorrow will cease. Thy darkness will pass away forever, and joy and light will wait upon thy footsteps.
I am reassured, O Master, and am strong to proceed. I am obedient to thee, and will submit to thy discipline, for thou hast comforted me with the word of knowledge. Thou hast strengthened me with the exhortation of truth. Thou hast instructed me with the instruction of enlightenment.
Blessed is he who obeys the truth. He shall not remain comfortless, but shall receive the benediction of peace.
4. Of Renunciation. Teacher divine, thy light is breaking in upon my mind. I now know the cause of my sorrow and suffering. I apprehend the sorrows of mankind. For my sufferings are the sufferings of the world. I see that sorrow and suffering are rooted in self, that evil and woe are in the desires of self, and that all the desires of self must be relinquished. Guide me, O Master, into the way of self-sacrifice. Teach me how to abolish self from the mind. Reveal to me the truth about renunciation.
Renunciation, O disciple, is twofold. There is renunciation in the letter. There is also renunciation in the spirit. The renunciation of outward things and particular acts only, this is the false renunciation in the letter. The renunciation of inward desires and defilements, this is the true renunciation in the spirit. Beware, O learner, of the renunciation which is false. Perform thou the renunciation which is true.
Instruct me further in a renunciation which is according to truth. Then I will embrace and perform it. So shall I avoid the renunciation which is erroneous and misleading.
Seek no gratification in the things which thou doest. Look not for reward in the things wherein thou strivest. Do all thy duties meekly. Put away desire. This is the true renunciation. Do not think of gain or loss to thyself. Think not to obtain pleasure and avoid pain in thy acts. Do all things faithfully that are necessary to be done. This also is the true renunciation. Sever not thyself from the world, but relinquish all love for the world and its pleasures. Do thy work in the world without thought of personal ends. This again is the true renunciation. Not by the outer things of the world is a man defiled. He is defiled by the low desires of his heart. To renounce the world, and not to relinquish to clinging to self, this is the false renunciation. Not from riches or poverty, not from wife or children, not from power and servitude, not from these things do afflictions spring. From indolence and self-indulgence, from lust and covetousness, from hatred and pride, from these things only do afflictions spring. Renounce the evil within, and the things of the world will not defile thee. Put away all thought of self, and whatsoever thou doest, it will bring to thee no suffering. In all thy duties forsake the thought of self, and sorrow will never overtake thee. He who quitteth a duty that is irksome, seeking happiness thereby, he who fleeth from the scene of temptation, seeking strength thereby, he who abandoneth his obligations, seeking bliss thereby, such a man, O disciple, falsely renounces. He is deluded, and will not attain to purity of heart. As a brave soldier, when death is inevitable, does not desert his post, thinking of duty only, and not of self-preservation, so he who renounces truly remains in his place in the world, performing all his duties steadfastly, not thinking of self. Renounce self, O disciple. Renounce all the tendencies of self. Renounce all the passions and prejudices of self. Renounce all the errors and egotism of self. Such is the true renunciation. Such is the sacrifice which leads to enlightenment and peace.
What, O Master, are the tendencies of the self?
Lust and self-indulgence, self-seeking and avarice, hatred and anger, vanity and pride, doubt and fear. These are the tendencies of self. These are the things that must be renounced.
And these things, O Spirit immaculate, I will renounce. I will obliterate them from my mind. I will abolish them from my inmost heart. For now I see how they lead men into ways of blindness, that they make snares of suffering for the feet of men, that they dig deep pits of sorrow for men to fall therein. I rejoice, O Divine One, in that which thou hast revealed to me, for thou hast opened unto me the way of holiness, thou hast pointed out to me the straight path of peace, thou hast shown me how to walk the sure way of wisdom. Thee will I follow, lead me to thy law.
Blessed is he who follows where I lead. He shall ascend unto the high and heavenly places. He shall behold with the vision that is faultless. He shall see with the eye of truth, which comprehendeth all things.
5. Of purity of heart. While I am undergoing thy discipline and purification, while walking the holy way of renunciation, let me behold the beauty of thy purity. Reveal to me the purity which is divine, for I would know the highest, even truth. I would gaze upon thy face, O Master. I would behold thy glory. I would see thee as thou art.
He who rightly renounces, who humbly purges his heart of self, who diligently searches for truth, not for selfish pleasures, he, my lonely one, shall find my purity. He, my faithful one, shall surely see my face. He, my chosen one, shall come to me at last.
Thou art my refuge and my dwelling place. My eyes, I know, will rest on thee at last. My heart, at last, will stay itself on thee. Show me the highest and holiest way, even the stainless way of purity.
Thou art ready to be washed free from thy defilements. As a vessel thou art ready to be cleansed. And when thou art cleansed, thou shalt be filled with the pure water of truth. By these 4 things is the heart defiled: the craving for pleasures, the clinging to temporal things, the love of self, the lust for personal continuance. From these 4 defilements spring all sins and sorrows. Wash thou thy heart, put away sensual cravings, detach the mind from the wish for possession, abandon self-defense and self-importance, and do not long for personal immortality. Thus putting away all cravings, thou wilt attain to satisfaction. Detaching thy mind from the love of perishable things, thou wilt acquire wisdom. Abandoning the thought of self, thou wilt come to peace. and not lusting for eternal life, thou wilt realize the incorruptible truth. He is pure who is free from desire, who does not crave for sensual excitements, who sets no value on perishable things, who is the same in riches and poverty, in success or failure, in victory or defeat, in life or death, who does not set up his own opinions, who is willing not to be. Lo, he it is who possesses my pureness. His happiness remains, his rest is sure, his peace is not disturbed. He knows what constitutes holiness. He understands the stainlessness of truth.
I will cleanse my heart with the cleansing of truth. I will be pure as thou art pure. I will put away the thought of pleasure. I will not covet perishable things. My personality I will regard as of no importance, ceasing to crave for its eternal continuance. Death comes to all men, and the tears of sorrow flow. But truth is eternal, and its knowledge leads to peace. I followed self, but it was filled with pain. I followed the world, but it was fraught with heavy sorrow. But now, O Master of Truth, I follow thee, and thou art leading me to bliss unspeakable. Thou directest my steps into the way of purity and peace.
Be strenuous in effort, strong in resolution, patient in endurance. So wilt thou overcome all sin. Thou wilt become divinely pure. Sorrow and pain thou wilt altogether subdue, and thou wilt acquire joy and strength and equanimity.
6. Of righteousness.
Stand up, Son of Light, and put on the garment of righteousness. Rejoice, and enter the glad way of holiness. Open thine eyes, and behold the glory of truth. For thou hast been faithful and obedient. Thou hast been patient and enduring. Thou hast conquered and overcome. The great enemy, even self, thou hast slain. The great darkness, even the darkness of ignorance, thou hast dispersed. The great veil, even the veil of illusion, thou hast torn asunder. Henceforth thou shalt walk in the way of knowledge. Thou shalt dwell with peace. Thou shalt bask in the light of immortality. Rise up, Son of Truth, in my divine dignity. Put on the shining life of righteousness, for thou art no longer self, thou art truth. Thy deeds will be according to the eternal, and thou wilt be a beacon to mankind.
Now, O Master, I see thee as thou art. I see thy ineffable beauty and glory. How can darkness dwell where thou art? How can sin and sorrow approach thee? I am dazzled by the power of thy majesty. Thou art truth. Thou art the eternal. And he who knoweth thee liveth in thy light. He doeth the deeds of light, and not of darkness. Point out to me now, O Master, the righteous way. Reveal unto me the jewels of the perfect life. Instruct me in the doing which is according to the eternal, so that I may be watchful and fail not.
Unrighteous is he whose acts are born of self. Righteous is he whose acts are born of truth. The unrighteous man is swayed by his feelings. Likes and dislikes are his masters. Prejudices and partialities blind him. Desiring and suffering, craving and sorrowing. Self-control he knows not, and great is his unrest. The righteous man is master of his moods. Likes and dislikes he has abandoned as childish things. Prejudice and partiality he has put away. Desiring nothing, he does not suffer. Not craving enjoyment, sorrow does not overtake him. Perfect in self-control, great peace abides with him. Do not condemn, resent, or retaliate. Do not argue or become a partisan. Maintain thy calmness with all sides. Be just, and speak truth. Act in gentleness, compassion, and charity. Be infinitely patient. Hold fast to love, and let it shape thy doing. Have good will to all, without distinction. Think equally of all, and be disturbed by none. Be thoughtful and wise, strong and kind-hearted. Be watchful, that no thought of self again creep in and stain thee. Think of thyself as abolished, dispersed. In all thy doing, think of the good of others and of the world, and not of pleasure or reward to thyself. Thou art no longer separate and divided from men. Thou art one with all. No longer strive against others for thyself, but sympathize with all. Regard no man as thine enemy. Thou art the friend of all men. Be at peace with all. Pour out compassion on all living things. Let boundless charity adorn thy words and deeds. Such is the glad way of truth. Such is the doing which is according to the Eternal. Filled with joy is the right doer. He acts from principles which do not change and pass away. Abandoning personality, he has become a power. He is one with the Eternal, and has passed beyond unrest. The peace of the righteous man is perfect. It is not disturbed by change and impermanence. Freed from passion, it is equal-minded, calm, and does not sorrow. He sees things as they are, and is no more confused.
Thou hast clothed me, O Master, with righteousness. The perfect life thou hast revealed to me. Thou hast shown me the holy and the happy way. Self is abolished, and I am thine. My thoughts are thy thoughts, my words are thy words, my deeds are thy deeds. Thou art eternal, and all my doing shall be from thee. Allayed is the fever of life, dispersed is all the darkness of the mind. Uncertainty and unrest have vanished away, sin and suffering are ended, and peace abides for ever.
Thou hast opened thine eyes to the eternal light. Thou art no more self-deceived nor self-afflicted. Enter now, O disciple, the highway of divine knowledge, and receive the bliss of immortality.
7. Of knowledge of the law. Show unto me now, O Master, the perfect knowledge. Reveal unto me the working of thy law. Illuminate my mind with the wisdom of enlightenment.
The law of life is perfect. Nothing can be added to it or taken from it. It cannot be altered or improved. None can avoid or escape it. Its operations are just. It is eternal, and abides in the midst of change. By it all things are protected, and there is no confusion. The good is preserved in bliss and peace. The evil is purified with punishment and suffering. Knowledge it crowns with calmness. Ignorance it scourges with unrest. It works with twofold action. It is eternal causation. It takes note of every thought and deed. Thou hast attained, O disciple, to spiritual vision. Look now upon the world, and tell me what thou seest.
I see, O Master, the great darkness, called ignorance. I see lurking therein the smouldering sparks of desire. I see how those sparks gather strength, they intensify into flaming passions, and over all mankind are heavy clouds of sorrow, and these are for the quenching of passions.
Thou hast well seen. Look again, and say what thou beholdest.
My sight hath pierced the cloudy veil of sorrow, and above all I see the great light called truth, and there is no darkness therein. No desires can enter there, and there are no consuming passions, there is no weeping and no unrest.
Thou hast seen, O disciple, the law of life. Thou hast perceived the twofold action of the law. There is ignorance, which fosters desire. Desire is the painful hunger to obtain. It is also the feverish clinging to that which is obtained. Thence arises separation from the thing desired, and this is suffering and sorrow. From desire also arises egotism or selfishness. Thus is created an illusory self, and in the delusion of the self is the nightmare of the world's woe. Thus man suffers by the action of the law. He can also escape suffering by the action of the law. When desire is abandoned, the painful hunger of the mind is cured. The burning fever of clinging to things is assuaged, and there is no separation and sorrow. Thence arises union with all that is, and this is satisfaction, bliss, and peace. From non-desire also proceed humility and love. The delusion of a permanent and separate individuality is destroyed, the preservation of the self is abandoned, and thus is cut away the ground of hatred and pride and selfishness. Then arises holiness. The reality of things is revealed. Truth is perceived, comprehended, and known, and this is the knowledge of the law. This is the bliss of immortality.
Very simple is the law, O truth, yet who shall comprehend it? Beautiful to behold, yet who can gaze upon it? Faultless in equity, yet who will listen and receive it?
The pure-hearted one receives, beholds, and comprehends. He acts with the action that is not attained by sin. His charity is without limit. It embraces all living things. He perceives with the vision that does not err. He does not condemn, knowing the perfect law, and knowing the perfect law, he has entered into peace.
Where knowledge is perfected, peace abides. Great is the calmness of the wise, deep is the peace of the pure, perfect the bliss of them that know the truth. Stilled are the tempests of the mind. There is no more perturbation. There is a haven for the storm-tossed, a home for them that are lost and forsaken, a refuge for all who wander in the night. I have found thee, thou eternal one, at last.
Thou hast sought and found. Thou hast fought and conquered. Thou hast striven and attained. He who has afflicted has become the healer of men. The child has become the instructor. The pupil has become the teacher. The disciple and the master are one. What I am, that thou art. Abide with me in peace. Benediction. And now peace abides. Self is dispersed, and there is no more anguish. Truth is attained, and affliction has ceased to be. The pilgrimage of pain is finished. There is no more toil and darkness. There is no more doubt and weeping. Unrest and sorrow have vanished away. Love folds the world. To all that suffer, peace.
End of the Divine Dialogue. End of Part 2 of The Divine Companion by James Allen.